welcome everybody to another episode of the most important conversations on relationships. I'm here with my co-host, Jenna Smith. Jenna, how are you doing today?
Good. I realize I'm not center.
That's okay. We always want to be centered. Always be centered. Speaking of centered, we have a great topic today that we are excited to get into. And I'll let you in a second sort of tell the story, Jenna, of what you came across that was kind of interesting. There's a pop culture reference here that we want to address. But we want to talk about how we have this tendency in our relationships to bring our past into the present moment, or our past relationship experiences into our present relationship experience, and why that is often challenging and in fact almost sabotaging of possibility and what wants to show up. But tell us a little bit about this pop culture thing you came across, which I was just like, I never heard of this. So
I was doing some shopping and listening to the radio, and they said, oh, there's these trust testers, this phenomenon on social media where people will pay, usually another woman. They said woman, they didn't even say any other sex of person, pay another woman to message their partner and flirt with them and ascertain how far they're going to take it. So
how much does this cost, by the way?
I have no idea. They did not disclose that. Just that it existed. It's kind of not surprising, I guess.
No, nothing surprising
It's like
anymore.
the digital private investigator.
Yeah. And I got to think that the people who are doing this for money, they're getting some kind of, outside the money, they're getting some kind of emotional payoff. Like, this is fun.
Right.
You know?
Or they've been cheated on and they're like, screw this guy, you know?
Yeah. So, all right. So there's this phenomenon. So the people who are paying these trust testers, they are dragging their past into their present, we can assume, which is that I've been cheated on before. I don't trust men, or maybe don't trust women, but usually it's probably the don't trust men is more popular. Actually, I heard a stat the other day. I have no idea if it's true. I don't even know how to validate it, but it kind of goes into the sort of incel conversation that you and I have had, but previously, that it's like 80% of the women are only interested in 20% of the men, or something like this.
Yes, and they call it like the 100 or something from the man. And and therefore you have to trick them. You must trick the women. Was the next part.
Yeah. So just this inside of the dialogue that we're having today around trust. So, does that mean 80% of the men are untrustworthy, and therefore this could be a good business, this trust tester thing, in a way?
I think so, because people, and also we're dealing in a fear culture that people want to know. Like someone saying they're not doing something, they were like, no, I want to know. I want facts. And then is a whole other thing. Yeah.
So where do we start with this? Let's start with, there's a couple different tangents that we could go on here that all relate to this. One is this idea of trust. Let's just talk about that. First of all, from my perspective, you hear oftentimes trust is something that needs to be earned. Okay. So that means you're starting from a position of mistrust, right?
We talked about this before, because I also think there's like a 0 point that I also watch how people be in the world, that there's like a both end to it. But yes, I will let you continue.
So in my view, though, trust is given, and then it doesn't need to be earned. It's the reverse. Trust needs to be lost.
Right.
So,
we're saying the same thing.
Right. So you could say it's a neutral standpoint, or from me, it's sort of believing the best in people. So that's not exactly neutral, but I'm actually giving them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe you consider that neutral. I don't know. But if you're in a new relationship and you're already thinking, gee, I don't know if I can trust this person, I need to hire a trust tester. From my view, you're already setting yourself up for failure right from the beginning. Because wherever trust is not given, it won't be reciprocated. And therefore, and we always see what we believe. That's the nature of our perceptual filter. And so if you believe that you are going to be cheated on, or if you believe that somebody is not trustworthy, the confirmation bias is just going to guarantee you're going to see that everywhere. If you're already at the point of hiring a trust tester, whatever evidence that trust tester brings you, you're going to see it through the lens of, aha, something's going on.
Right. And it's just gonna destroy the relationship because I hear all the time, oh, they thought I was cheating. Oh, they thought they were suspicious of this. And then eventually the person's like, F it, I'm gonna. Like, and there's like this self-fulfilling prophecy kind of thing. They're like, if I'm already being villainized for this thing, I'm gonna, go to my baser instincts and just do it. Now, after the fact, they're both not being their full expression of who they really are. So none of that's gonna feel great.
Yeah.
The dynamic, off it goes.
So, so for those of you listening and watching, take a moment, I guess, and think about what is your relationship to trust? I mean, what is your relationship to trust that is impacting your relationship? Because the relationship you have to trust will be mirrored in the relationship you have with someone else.
Yep.
Or the relationship you have, if it's mistrust, you're going to see mistrust everywhere you look. And that doesn't mean in relationships that people don't do things that break trust.
Yeah.
Right. The other thing I think is important to put out here right now is this is why dialogue and communication in relationship is so important, because if you're suspicious of someone, even though you have no evidence that they've done something, maybe it's even a new relationship, and we're going to talk about this after the break, maybe you're dragging your past into this present moment, then if you don't have a conversation with them about it, then you are guaranteeing again to only see what you believe you're seeing. If you're someone who isn't trusting anymore because maybe of whatever happened in the past, and if you're keeping it to yourself, you're not giving the person you're in relationship with to influence your lack of trust. So tell us a little bit about your clients, the people you work with. What are some of the things that come up around this topic of trust, and how do you advise them to deal with it, to communicate from a communication standpoint?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's two things. The one advice is, who do you actually want to be, and come back to that. Like, do you want to be the text message checking, harried, insecure version of you? Like, who do you want to be? Because as far as I'm concerned, the metrics of success in the relationship are, can you be you? And can you come back faster when you're like, whoa, I'm really anxiously attached right now. Wow, I'm really in a trust spiral. Like, where else do you feel uncertain? Where else, so like for me, it's always like, where's this coming from? Really? And then if it is in the relationship, now the communication part of non-reactive communication. You didn't do this, and no. Like, no, like, hey, curious, why? So I was just on this road trip for myself, but anyway, dating somebody, and then he didn't fill up the gas tank, and I was like,
so you're driving on low gas. Yeah,
and I just drove the whole day, and no. So like the inflammation was really high on like what and you do this, like, like not meeting my standard or whatever, not meeting the mark of equality of resources. Anyway, so then I was like, let me just ask, curious, because like, I can't see the reason. He's like, oh, because it's cheaper at this other place. So when we'd be going over here, that I would go full up over there. And I'm like, okay, cool. So many people log so many of those moments and never
don't say anything.
Right. And it's like, and then you get to decide, like, do I like that you fill it up and then go over here? And like, that's a whole other relationship compatibility thing that's really clean and neutral. And like, let's work on this. But these like, dare he, like, like that kind of thing. Like, that's when, get a little sober about it, do some journaling, and then be like, what do I want to know?
Yeah.
Why? Why did this happen?
So what I just heard you say, though, which is great for those listening and watching, is instead of being trapped in a sort of negative judgmental loop, be curious about the other person. Because we often forget in any relationship, romantic or otherwise, is that the other person we're relating to is having a totally different experience than we're having.
They're a completely different human.
Yeah.
Well, we can one place, and over here gets gas another place. Like,
yeah. So, but we forget that because we're so, by default, I think, unless we train ourselves, egocentric.
Yeah.
That the entire world is being experienced the way I am experiencing right now. That everyone on planet Earth is, and then when they do something that doesn't align with what we think they should do based on our experience, we fall into judgment, we fall into mistrust, we fall into all of these negative patterns.
And arrogance, I'm right.
Yeah.
You obviously should fill it up. Like that arrogance is really easy to come, again, bringing your past into your present. That arrogance is going to be really easy to come by of like, no, you should do it this way because
and this is where the ontological work you and I talk about all the time is so important, to know yourself and to then also know that the other is not yourself. And so curiosity is a magic. It sounds foolish to say, but when we're in it, like you just said, you drove all day and you were like, what the actual fuck?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you do this for a living and you fell into that.
Yeah. So I'm usually very transparent that I'm also human. So I'll tell stories all the time. I'm like, and then I felt this way. Because to me, the goal of my work is to help people come back faster and to have the tools to come back faster. But the reactions and the emotions and the I'm right, you're wrong is the dance of being human. And then to your point of that other person isn't you. And how do which is why we do this show.
Well, it's crazy to think that we have to say these kinds of things. And I think if you're listening and watching, you're like, yeah, duh. Of course I know my partner isn't me, but you don't in those emotional moments.
But they also think the other thing I see in relationship, because you did ask me that in like, what do I see in themes?
Yeah.
You can see my point of view. You believe my point of view. That like what I'll hear people say is like, can you see it? Can you see what I'm saying? They want to be heard, but the mistake in that is they want the person to agree with their
agreed. They want to be agreed with. Yeah.
In order to feel loved and validated as a person. Now they don't take it that far and they don't necessarily emotionally know that, but the correlation of you believing my worldview equals my lovability and
and my own self-approval.
Like do you see this? Do you see it? And so I see that a lot. Yeah, and that's gonna be a problem.
Okay, so that's a good point to just take a quick break, and we want to come back and talk about dragging the past into the present, because based on what you just said there, this approval cycle we fall into of needing others to agree with us in order for us to have approval for ourselves is rooted in some past historical thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back with dragging your past into the present and how that is sabotaging your relationship with yourself and with everyone else. And welcome back, everybody. We are back talking about trust today, talking about trust in your relationships. And one of the important topics we were just talking about before the break is how we have this tendency as individuals, not even in relationship, but it affects our relationships, to drag our past into our present. So things that have happened to you in relationship, and not even, it might just be things that have happened to you that have made you feel like the world is untrustworthy. It may not be someone that you were in an intimate relationship with, but people could watch television.
My
people who
Nana
watch Dateline.
My Nana hates men, period. Like hates them, thinks they're why.
Yeah.
I'd be with a man because they were just always difficult and needed her to be their mom and stuff. So she didn't have a good partnership experience. So like it could be from your generation, like the generational programming.
It could be generational. You could observe it in your parents' dynamic. You could, like I said, you could observe it just through culture and television or whatever, social media. And so it creates this sort of this idea that we drag in from past experiences that the world is untrustworthy. This person in front of me that I'm in relationship with is untrustworthy. And why does it happen? It happens because our brain, until mastered, which is the stuff we talk about in whole life architecture, the jungle and the garden, or all of this stuff, until mastered, is going to see the world through the lens of threat. Where are the threats? Where am I insecure? Where am I not whole? Where am I not complete? And because we are confusing our lifestyle for our life, or threats to our lifestyle as the threat to our life. And it is, our brain is like a radar that's always looking for what could go wrong. And that leads us to a place of being in a place where we don't trust people.
In order to avoid pain. I'm just going to add that because it's the make pain go away, make sure pain never happens game. And so that's where the emotional, like the ability to feel feelings is going to come into play as well. Like taming and training the mind and emotional capacity go together on your relationship journey, because
Right.
you're that I'm going to avoid this pain. Why do you need to avoid it? And what conditions need to be true that you can be with every emotion. Therefore, you won't need to do the protective mechanisms.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, and so if you're in a new relationship with someone and you're approaching it not like you were saying before the break from a place of curiosity, but
mhm,
approaching it from a place of, well, this happened to me 10 years ago and I saw this happen to my friend. It didn't even happen to you, but you saw it happen to your
mhm,
friend or maybe your parents or something. And then the logical conclusion of your reptilian mind is, therefore, I shouldn't trust this person.
mhm,
They need to prove themselves to be trustworthy. And
mhm.
if that's the lens through which you're looking through, you're more apt to see all the areas where they're failing your trust test than the areas where they're succeeding. In fact, you may
Right.
be completely blind to the areas
Right.
where they're succeeding.
And then we go back to right before the break. Who do you want to be? And how do you like what's working in the relationship now? And like in this now moment, you're relating to this person, and what are you missing out on? Like, so people miss out on missing out because they're afraid of missing out. They're afraid of getting hurt. But it's like right now, what's working?
Yeah.
You know, we both teach that, like flip the mind, like what is working? Gratitude. You know, people are. But anyway, the like just not being in what's already working, because you're afraid you're going to be in pain. Dr. Joe Dispenza said this thing. It reminds me, he was talking about forgiveness, and he said, the love that you withhold is the pain that you experience. I was like, yeah, because the other part of what you just said is like the never again. There's something created pain for you in app, and like never.
I will never let this happen
Never
again.
do this again. I will never give you a present because they didn't like it. I will never outreach. I will never extend. I will never, vulnerability, because at one point that hurt, and that's the past into the present. And so now your current relationship is suffering, or that person is now not receiving all of your love. The pain that you withhold is the love that you withhold is the pain you experience. And now you might not have that relationship to grow because you're bringing this past into the present, because they can't see you. Because at one point you shrunk yourself to avoid pain. And you're not sharing yourself fully with this person, which is that blank slate that we want to get to as much as possible. Co-creative relationship versus here's all my shit I'm going to drag into it, and you're going to it.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, and again, this goes to the ontology piece. When you are whole and complete in and of yourself, and you are not operating in life as a victim, and for so many people in relationships, they are living in that relationship operating as a victim. In other words, whatever this person does or doesn't do, I have to deal with. Like it's against me, right? It's an affront against me. And so in that moment, you give up your autonomy. You give up your power. So, everyone knows, listen, knowledge, information is not transformation. Just because you know something or you've read something, you've heard something, doesn't mean you're practicing it and you're embodying it. And so everyone knows that, well, I shouldn't say everyone. A lot of people know that codependent relationships are not the type of relationship that is ideal for having something that is thriving. We want interdependent relationships where two whole and complete people, autonomous, responsible for their own life, responsible for their own choices, are coming together and saying, I like what you're bringing. You like what I'm bringing. Let's do this together. But
in a relationship,
you're not responsible for my emotions. I'm not responsible for yours. And so that means you're signing up, or as you put it, you're subscribing to the game of relentless communication. And relentless transformation. So if people started to approach relationships as a transformational journey, then you wouldn't be dragging your past into the present, because what you did in the past with someone else may not have worked then, but to cut it off and say, I will never do this again, it's to spite the fact that maybe the person you're in relationship now would really appreciate that. And you're withholding that because you were hurt. And people do that because they're in codependency and they're not playing the game of every relationship I'm in is a chance for my own evolution, growth, and transformation. Therefore, I should be curious, and therefore it's going to require me to take risks. So you're signing up or you're subscribing for the I might get hurt again, but it's worth it game.
Yeah. People have to stop being so feeble. Like, ooh, ouch, it hurt. Okay, so you're never going to give someone a gift. You're never going to outreach. You're never like, you know, it's just like, really? Is that what you want? But they think about it that way. So the two circumstances I was talking about before we got on to talk about this of dragging the past into the present was like the man was constantly rejected by his former partner with sexual advances. So like I have the headache so he felt constantly rejected. So he stopped advancing, but then carried that into his next relationship. It's a completely different person.
Yeah.
And
maybe she doesn't get headaches.
She doesn't.
She doesn't. This whole I have a headache thing, you know, I think Tylenol was invented to solve this problem, right? I mean, it's pretty much the lamest. It's right up there with the dog ate my homework. Okay.
Right.
It's pretty lame.
I got an early meeting. It's like no one who has a good sex life says that doesn't happen.
No, they always find a way to
Let's
fit
find
it
a
in.
way. It's like set a timer. Let's go. Let's make it again.
Yeah.
Anyway, but
that's why quickies exist.
That's what can make it fun. As long as you know that that's what you're doing, by the way, because you got to be like, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Both people know. Yeah. But the dragging that past, or like I did this thing and it ended up feeling badly, but that shows you that was a part of you that wanted to express love in that way. So why would you lose parts of yourself?
That's right. That's a good point right there. That's a very good point. Yeah.
Like bring it back. Like,
because you're just shrinking and cutting, you're making yourself smaller and cutting your capacity off, your true, the breadth of who you are, you're cutting it off.
So just shrink. Oh, I'll never feel hurt again now. And be nice and not bad neutral, where there's like no aliveness, no risk, no reward, no, I did this thing for you. And just like learning how to have fun with like having fun with the process of creating.
What you just said is important. When we drag our past into our present, it's our attempt to de-risk. And you can't thrive in life. Nobody can thrive in life without risk.
So the goal isn't to shrink so you don't feel pain. It's to grow, be able to feel pain and go, you know what? This is who I want to be. I want to be alive. And I want to share that with someone. So we want to look at what it was. So, you know, we're going to do the takeaways, but spoiler alert, I'm going to tell it right now. Like we want to look at like, who do I want to be in a relationship? Who am I? Like, am I generous this way? Do I like outings or like this? All the love language stuff, you can explore that. There's lots of stuff out there on love language. But the point of the reason the love languages became so popular is because we are different people. So at least gave us the opportunity to go, how do you show love? How do I show love? Well, I like to be loved this way. Therefore, I show you love the way I like to receive it. And then it gets lost on people. So to get really curious about how you want to show love and then look at where you can reclaim it from where at some point you were being you and it wasn't received. And that sucks, but like reclaim it, bring it back online. Like, does that work in this relationship? Because I can tell you for sure with my friends dating in their 40s, 50s, 60s, it's like there's a lot of things missing in the relationship because something happened in the past. And so they're in this like graveyard of like stuff they don't
past disappointments.
Yeah, like it's like, can we leave them in the graveyard?
What a great metaphor. So you get into a new relationship with someone, and you know maybe you move in with them, or maybe not. Maybe they're just coming over to your house.
Yeah, we both know how we feel about that. Like, your house, I have mine.
Yeah. And maybe they're coming over to your house, and they look out the window, and there's a graveyard, and they're like, well, that's interesting. How come you're living on a graveyard, right? Metaphorically, the graveyard of all your past disappointments, all the things that didn't work, right? I mean, if you could just visualize that as opposed and realize that that's what people do. They're dragging around this graveyard of dead hopes and dreams and all this disappointment, and they're dragging into their new relationship. It's almost like, I tried that and it didn't work. So like you said, I'm never going to do it again. Here's the
never
thing.
again.
And if you try something and you're not getting the response that you want from the person you're in relationship with, this is the take a risk and have a conversation moment.
Yeah.
Hey, I thought I would do this for you, but it wasn't received well.
It didn't
What's
land
going
well.
on for you? Yeah. What did you, and you might be surprised. Oh, I didn't even notice. Or I was, remember, they're a totally different person,
They might have had to pee.
Yeah. Something as simple as that.
So they're just like not able to respond as excited as you'd like.
Or they got a really crappy email from relating to something at work or something in their head. They're in their head and they're drifting off somewhere else. And so they're just not noticing it, But if you're unwilling to take the risk of communication, you're just going to add another gravestone to the graveyard.
And also the thing you're doing isn't you. So people will do something, thing isn't received. They will feel, when I'm singing, I learned this when I was 11. I would do a vocal competition, which I think are stupid because you just learn to have to do it good and win. And it's just everything about music sucks after that. So anyway, those sucked. But I would get criticized, adjudicated so you could be better the next time. But it really just landed as you suck, you suck, you suck. And here's the list of reasons why you suck. When you're 11, I think I suck. So it isn't my voice. It isn't the performance. I didn't have the maturity to distinguish between the two. So it was a big thing to learn. The performance is being adjudicated, not me.
Not me.
Say that to say your gift, your effort, your bid for attention. That's a thing from the Gottman Institute, like how you try to get attention from your partner. It's not you being rejected.
Right.
In some cases it might be, I can't say across the board, but most often we need to look at this action is its own thing that then we can have a conversation about what didn't work about that, the curiosity, and not so desperately trying to avoid pain. Or you could say, oh, that brought pain to me. That actually made me sad. And then they could be like, oh, wow, I don't want you to feel sad.
And if they really care about you, they're not going to like that.
Feel sad. Yes, that's a good sign. If they're sucks to be you, then you have good data.
Then,
that's your problem. We'll say it's your emotions are your responsibility. So anyway, that's where things can be taken out of context.
Then you're in relationship with Andrew Tate. Okay, we're going to take a quick break and come back with some takeaways, some things that, and listen, if you don't take it away and do something with it, if you don't take it and go, as they say, then nothing's going to change for you. So it's on you. We can just provide the advice, I guess. There was one time I was walking down Venice Beach and there was a guy with a table and he was just sitting there with a big table and he had a sign, free advice. And people would literally come and hang out with him and ask his advice. And he just sat there all day giving advice. I thought that was interesting. That's what we're doing here.
I'm going to experiment with that one day.
We'll be right back. And welcome back, everybody. We're going to do a little bit of a lightning round of takeaways for you today. I don't know how lightning it'll be.
I don't know either, but okay.
I just like saying everyone has a lightning round. We've never talked about that, so I thought I should throw it in the mix. Okay, we're talking about self-trust today. We're talking about dragging your past, your negative experiences in your past into your present, how that sabotages your ability for aliveness because you shrink. You're dragging this graveyard around with you and expecting your next relationship to be more amazing than the last one, but you've already brought all this negative baggage into it and you're like, gee, I wonder why this isn't working.
Yeah. And you're not feeling fulfilled because you've lost parts of you in your
along the way.
journey.
So, Jenna, what are a few takeaways from your standpoint? And then I've got one I want to talk about as well.
Yes. So I already sort of primed it of what am I dragging into this now relationship? It's just doing an inventory, just journaling, what are your I will never again moments? I will never again trust this person. I mean, I had a past relationship who literally lied that he was a police officer. We should do a whole show about this. And he wasn't.
How long were you in the relationship before you found out?
A year.
Holy crap.
And hence my never again of just because
wow.
I'm not trusting this. So when you say just trust people, I'm kind of well, I mean, I did that,
And are you never againin yourself?
Well, this is the thing. That would be one of them of I will check if they work at the thing. Like I would just never think someone would lie about that. But anyway, this is a whole other thing.
Was he a bus driver?
We'll have another, I'll have to see what I can disclose.
Okay.
It was an interesting time. And then I'm intuitive. So like, where did that intuition go? Anyway, the never again is, okay, well, that happened. So should I hypervigilantly check, fact check, Like, no, that happened, be responsible, blah, blah, blah. Just not dragging your past into the present. So where were those gut punch moments? Where were those, oh my God, I should have known better, where you made yourself wrong and all this kind of stuff, and just get them out. Just bring enough consciousness to them.
Bring awareness to it. Mm-hmm.
Presence to them, that you have them, they don't have you. I use that language all the time. Like that instead of them just in the background, like, watch out for this, watch out for that. Just be like, okay, here's who I'm deciding to be, because you're not letting them run you. So I would do that. Just do an inventory of like, where are the things that your worst fears in relationship? They're going to cheat. They're going to leave me. They're going to leave me for a more attractive person. They're going to leave me for a more successful person. Just like get honest with what you're dragging into the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, that's it, because enough of
that's
that.
A big one.
Yeah, it's a big one. I don't think
well, it reminds me of the
it.
worst case scenario exercise that we do in whole life architecture, which is, okay, let's assume this person is going to do X, or this isn't what I thought it was, or then what, right? Like you work it out and you kind of game it. It's almost like a game theory thing where it's like, okay, how would I handle that? What actions would I take? And what I find is that because our brain is always seeking certainty, and the whole thing of trust and distrust is coming from a place of needing certainty. So I won't trust because I need predictability. And
in order to feel safe.
In order to feel safe. So I'm going to project the worst case scenario onto the person. Instead of doing that, use the journaling technique you're talking about and project it into your journal and be with that.
Get it out. And then from that clear space, or there might be, they might move some energy emotionally. Who do you want to be in relationship? Not them. Who do you want to be? Do you want to be joyful? Do you want to be how do you like to show love? How do you like to express joy? How do you like to be in companion with somebody? Because it's all different. Do you want to like get out of the bed and you're off running? Or do you want to like sit and be slow? Like, who are you? What brings you joy? And like, be like, okay, cool. This is who I am. Like, you're not all of your past is the point. Now create much bigger horizon for yourself on how you are in relationship. So then when you're dating, you can know this is who I am. And will this match well with this person being themselves? Hopefully not lying about who they are.
It's really distinguishing what you said earlier about I am not my actions and they are not their actions, and I'm not the actions that have happened to me either. And being able to keep that separate as two different things. And so then you can show up whole and complete without all of, dragging the actions of yourself or others into this relationship. And then the other thing that I wanted to leave people with, which I agree with you, let's do a show on expanding our capacity in the future, maybe our next episode, expanding capacity. There's a great body of work out there called, there's a series of books written by Nicole Daedone, she was the founder, creator of the One Taste company and movement, which was heavily slandered by Netflix and has resulted in her being investigated by the FBI. And recently, the evidence in the case against her has totally collapsed and was found to be completely fabricated with the help of an FBI agent, in fact. And so this is another clear sort of takedown of a woman who's trying to help other women deeply connect to their erotic selves. And what does that mean? Well, Eros is full embodied living. It is being totally embodied, totally integrated, accepting the experience of life, regardless of the labels we put on it, good, bad, negative, positive, right, wrong. These are all things that humans place on phenomenon or phenomenal experiences. In the case of a relationship, it's a phenomenal experience with someone else. And we then judge it, label it, distinguish it right? But that's our stuff. That's not what it is. That's just our stuff. And in the erotic intelligence work that she does, which I think is brilliant, I want to let our listeners and viewers know that there's her series of books. You can get them on Amazon, I believe. They're called the Eros Sutras. And it's a body of work around how to become more embodied in your body and grounded in the present, like we're talking about today. So you're not dragging the future, and you're not also projecting the past into this moment. You're just here. It's like Ram Dass said, be here now. Be fully holy you now. Things you've said and done, things other people have said and done are frankly not relevant to this moment. But we have a tendency to want to make them relevant. And in the erotic intelligence work, it's about how to be fully embodied in this moment and how to deal with, she calls it tumescence, this sort of nagging, discomfort, angsty feeling. Anxiety is a form of tumescence that we have when we get into relationship with people, because we fear the worst and we're looking for the worst, and therefore we withhold trust, which is what we've been talking about all day today. So I just invite people to go and check out her books on erotic intelligence. They're called the Eros Sutras. Really well written. I've been going through them myself, and she's really a thought leader in the space of how to eroticize life and
to bring those mammal meets being energetics back into common practice, into something that, because a part of that, what she would call tumescence, which I find fascinating, but like where people just aren't fulfilled and aren't this, and I see it all the time, is the shrinking, the lack of aliveness, and the lack of safety at the same time, and the over-identification with the cognitive mind is your leader in life. And that can be rewired into presence and more aliveness, where you have a mind, and the mind helps you do things, and it directs you, and it helps you experience life, but it isn't you. Yeah,
it's something I say every morning. We offer these free meditations with TMIC. They're at 7 o'clock Pacific, 10 o'clock Eastern. But every day when we go into the meditations, I always have to remind people, you are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are the observer of them, and you can train yourself to be the observer of them, so you're not in constant reaction to them. And you can glean the wisdom if there's wisdom to be gleaned, or you can discard them if there's nothing of value to advance you. And so this is a practice, though, because we easily, as human beings, conflate our thoughts and emotions with who we are. And
because we weren't taught otherwise. So I always just say, the working title of my book is "It's Not Your Fault, Nothing's Wrong with You," because you weren't taught you're not your thoughts, and you weren't taught you're not your emotions.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, we're just giving you little nuggets. Piece yourself back together.
Yeah. And we'll continue giving you those nuggets on future episodes. The
lightning nuggets round.
The lightning nuggets round. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the Most Important Conversations. I hope this was helpful. Go check out Nicole's work, the Eros Sutras, and write your list. Get your sort of, get it out of your head, journal all the things that you're feeling and thinking about this person you might be in relationship with, and try to, that's in a way, actually, isn't it, Jenna, of kind of getting your thoughts out of you, so you can see them as sort of thought objects and be like, okay, that's not me. I don't have to react to this. So it's important.
Protect yourself from it.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode of The Most Important Conversations for Relationships.
That concludes this episode of The Most Important Conversations. This in-depth conversation could set you on the path to self-improvement, which is essential if you want to be an effective leader and take meaningful action in your life. If you enjoyed this episode and want more of these stimulating discussions, you can find them at tmicglobal.com. Remember, the world is at a crossroads right now. You can't afford to waste this opportunity to take charge of your life, build meaningful relationships with others, and co-create a brighter tomorrow. Thank you for listening. See you on the next one.